I'm Helen Pacheco. I'm your host for Inside Santa Fe Public Schools. Today we're at the Santa Fe Public Schools Administration Office, and my guests are Tom Ryan, who is the Chief Information and Strategy Officer. Welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited about the conversation.
It'll be great. Thank you. We have a lot to learn from both of you. And I have Neil Weaver. Neil, you are the Director of Digital Learning in the district. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to kind of preface all this with the digital learning in the classrooms, and then we're going to talk about the education technology note.
Great.
Up and coming. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Great. So, in our classrooms now, things have totally changed from back in the day. And we have, how does the implementation of your digital learning plan fit into the whole curriculum of Santa Fe Public Schools?
Neil, why don't you go ahead and address that?
Absolutely. So the classroom has changed since we were in school. Each of our classrooms has a standard package with smart boards in the classrooms, document cameras, teachers have laptops, students have access to Chromebooks and iPads within the classroom, and it's become an integral part of the way students learn through the use of technology. Technology really acts as the support in excellent teaching and learning.
Wow. Okay, so you mentioned Chromebooks. Chromebooks as opposed to iPads. What is the difference there for our learners?
Absolutely.
Listeners, excuse me.
Absolutely. So the difference is that a Chromebook is more like the typical laptop, and an iPad is more of a tablet device. We use we use our iPads in our classrooms for students from grades kindergarten through first grade, and Chromebooks for our students in grades 2 on up to 12. Our students in grades 2 through 6 use a device only while they're in school, so they have access to a device every single day. Our students in grades 7 through 12 actually have a device that is checked out to them, and they can use it 24 hours a day, so that we're really extending the learning environment for our students.
And Helen, just to clarify a little bit, a Chromebook is a very inexpensive internet access device. So as compared to a laptop, a Chromebook can cost around $250.
Oh.
So it's very inexpensive. In fact, it's less expensive than the number of books that we buy. A textbook can cost over $100 just for one textbook. So this is an internet device that can access content in an online format, lessons, ebooks, and other assignments, and allow for communication between students and teacher.
Oh, that's fabulous. So there's a lot of one-to-one. You're always at somebody's level. They can explore at their own level.
Right. As you said early, the technology continues to shift, and a lot of the content is coming in a digital format because it's much less expensive to supply information digitally than it is to print out big books and send them to the schools that we would use for 6 to 10 years kind of a thing. So a lot of our content is coming from our publishers in a digital format. These are the devices that access that content.
Oh, that's fabulous. So every student has access to this, and all teachers.
That is correct.
What about parents? Can they look in on all of this? Is there something they can get online and look at their students' progress? Look at their grades, talk to teachers, any kind of communication? How do parents tie into all of this?
Absolutely. We use PowerSchool, which is PowerSchool is our student information system. Parents have access to student grades, communicate with teachers through PowerSchool. Communicate with teachers through PowerSchool, and they can log in. They can see their students' grades, get notifications if assignments are missing.
Yeah, we even have a application for information from our messaging system that allows parents to access those notifications right on their cell phone.
Isn't that fabulous? Gosh, it's just grown by leaps and bounds since I've been in the classroom. It's amazing. And so, let's talk about the core curriculum, the Common Core. How does that fit into the Common Core standards? You said something about wanting to incorporate that earlier.
Yeah, What we're creating is an environment that supports teaching and learning and the engagement of the teacher, the student, and the student to the content. So this is a platform from which teachers can then use the resources to apply their Common Core standards. Our Common Core is loaded up into our learning management system. They can select the standards and align it with their lesson planning. So we provide tools for the teachers to use to teach Common Core, but we're not the Common Core, if that makes sense. So we create the environment to leverage skills and opportunities for teachers to enhance their teaching and learning.
That's fabulous. So before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but before, when I was in the classroom, we had a computer lab, and everybody went to the computer lab. That's how old I am. The computer lab for what, an hour a day or an hour a week, whatever it was. Now, it's not that little tiny sliver in the entire curriculum. Now it's almost like you're overseeing and inputting into every other subject area.
Yes.
Or enhancing it, embellishing.
Perfect. Originally, technology sort of came in and we had an hour a day, a separate class for technology. And really what we're trying to create with this environment are the tools that teachers are teaching reading, math, and science, and integrating the technology to help support that. So the board passed a recent computer science resolution that we would integrate these skills for 21st century learning in all of our K through 12 classrooms. So instead of setting up another class, how do we leverage the technologies to help students, whether they're early readers or they're advanced placement kids, but to really individualize and personalize the instruction to meet the needs of the children. And there's just a ton of resources out there that teachers can select to engage a student both in class and after class or resources for parents to practice with their kids.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. I'm just so amazed and so happy to hear all this happening. And all of this will get even better now that we talk about the education technology note that's coming up. Let's talk about that. What exactly is that? ETN. A lot of people recognize those three, that acronym. That's for Education Technology Note. That's coming up this next month, correct?
Starting next week, we'll send ballots out the first week of February.
Okay, a ballot. What is on that ballot? It goes to every parent, student. Who does it go to?
Okay, so let's start with an ETN. ETN is a funding vehicle that the state legislature has approved so that we can fund technology appropriately. We don't want to buy a $250 computer that'll last for 5 years and then have it on a 30-year loan kind of a thing. So these are specific to technology, and the legislation allows us to go out to find out if the community supports, and they have in the past, and we really appreciate that, the technology. The second part of your question was
Who gets
about the
the
ballot.
ballot.
Yep.
So the legislation changed last year and wants to move all of our elections into the city, county, big elections in November.
Oh, so they only have to go once and not have to go back?
Right, and to increase voter participation.
Sure.
And they enacted that law, but they didn't realize that elections that were scheduled for February would put us out of cycle, and we would lose $11 million this year if we waited all the way till November. So it's $11 million for the 4 charter schools and all of Santa Fe public schools, so this is a community-wide election. And the election is now turned into a paper ballot option for us to get around this loss of $11 million.
Oh, I see.
So each voter in Santa Fe County, in the Santa Fe County and public school system, will get a ballot, a paper ballot in a big envelope, and it will go one for each voter. So if there's 2 voters at your home, you'll get 2 envelopes. Inside the envelope is another envelope to be able to send this back, and the ballot. It's self-addressed. The postage is already paid so that the voter doesn't have to worry about taking care of that. A funny story, though, my son, who's 31, he didn't mail anything. He's going to have to go old school for the technology election for Santa Fe Public Schools.
Isn't that funny?
So, the ballots will go out. It has one question, whether you support the maintenance of the taxes. This is not a tax increase, the maintenance of our taxes for ETN. It'll be in Spanish and English. You'll put it inside an envelope. And then there'll be an outer envelope that you'll sign your name to and send it back into the county so that it can be counted. What's important about this, most of us think, like with our taxes, that as long as its post date is within the window, it gets counted. In this election, it has to be received at the county office before 7 p.m. on March 5th, or it won't count, even if it's in the mail. So it's important that as soon as you get the ballot, that you fill it out, place your vote, and get it back in the mail so that it can really count.
Oh, it's a simple process.
It's
very simple. It sounds like you've streamlined everything. And there's only one question. Do I agree or do I approve of this?
Do I agree or do I oppose? Yes, there's
That's
only
it.
one question.
Oh my gosh, so all of our voters, everybody who receives that envelope needs to get it done immediately. It's not that difficult. Get it, the envelope is self-addressed, sign it on the outside, and send it in.
That's for voter confidentiality. Okay, so they'll get that. They'll see that you signed it and you're saying that you are who you are. They'll open that up. Your vote is still inside a sealed envelope. That will go into all of the votes received. And then at the election, at the end of the election, they'll open those up so that everybody has privacy in their vote. But they have recorded that you have sent it in on the previous collection of it.
That's great. Okay, so when will we know? Does this up the taxes, first of all? Let's go back to that, because a lot of people with bond issues and those types of things always have that idea that maybe this is going to increase my property tax or some sort of tax. Will that be true of this?
Our community has been very generous in supporting public education and the value about kids in our community and learning. And they have supported this in the past, and this is a maintenance of that effort. We are not going out to increase the amount of money, so this maintains their current tax rate, and this will not cause their taxes to go up above what they've currently been paying.
So how is this going to change the whole picture in Santa Fe Public Schools? You get this approved, and now what?
I think that what's important to realize is that we just are able, with the approval of ETN, to continue the hard work that we've put in place. So we have outfitted all of our schools with state-of-the-art infrastructure and wireless networks so that our students are connected. We have purchased devices for students to use on a daily basis. And the continuation of this ETN not only allows us to continue, but it actually allows us to move forward. Technology in education is changing and will continue to change.
Daily.
Absolutely. And we're able to stay on the front of this, and really that allows us to help prepare our students for the world that they live in.
Yes, Helen, with robotics and virtual reality and artificial intelligence and augmented reality, coding, there's just a lot of things that our kids are going to be exposed to and need to be prepared for, because nobody expects the technology to go away. We don't think we're going to lose the need for having cell phones and the digitization of a lot of what's in our lives now, automation and self-driving vehicles. These aren't things that are out in the future. These are things they have now that they're testing to try to get it to deploy in all of our communities. So as we prepare kids, it's important they don't receive the education that I received, but that they receive the education that will prepare them to be great digital citizens. And what we mean by digital citizenship is not only that you have the skills to use the technology appropriately, but that you have the digital citizen as a community of learners, as a community of people, and that we start to make wise decisions on what we automate, or how we use virtual reality or gene splicing, or how do I have the basic ethical foundation that has some sense of compassion and empathy for the impact that technology will have on different people's lives. And without that, we don't have a foundation to make great decisions. So we want our students to be well prepared for their future.
Perfect. We have to stay ahead of this.
Yes,
I mean, really,
absolutely.
we're always in a race to keep ahead of all of this. What about those families that don't have internet in their homes? Do we find that in this district?
Well, we have a number of initiatives. Neil, why don't you talk a little bit about our rolling study hall and some of the other
Absolutely. So we do understand that some of our students don't have access beyond the school day. There are steps that teachers and students can take. They can download materials before students go home. So it's not as if not having internet at home is a total handicap, because there are things that we can do to get around that. In addition, we've put some programs together. We have a really exciting program that we're calling Rolling Study Hall, and it's in partnership with Google and COSN, which is the Consortium for School Networking, which we've put internet on 6 of our buses. And these are buses that students are on the bus 45 minutes to, say, an hour and 10 or an hour and 15 minutes. Not only are we providing access to the internet so that we're extending that learning capability for students, but we're also putting tutors on the bus so that students have access to the curriculum and they have adult support from a tutor as well.
That support on the bus.
On the bus, absolutely.
That's amazing. So the buses are a lot more quiet now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe there's a lot of energy going on because they're
probably
excited about what they're
is.
doing.
Yeah.
And do you find that these students, probably more in high school than the elementary grades, have cell phones and
Well, you'd be
texting
surprised
and so I'm
on
not
how
in
many
that world
elementary
anymore.
kids have cell phone.
their own cell phones? And
and-
you've got restrictions and so on. You talk about the safety and the security. All that's probably part of the curriculum, I'm sure.
Well, and that's a good point. Our systems we have a number of filters that block inappropriate content or things that students shouldn't be participating in, as well as having each of our children and parents sign an appropriate use of the technology. We can't stop the intentional acts of trying to do something wrong. If
Right.
somebody's going to steal, they're going to steal. But it is our job to help provide the kids with the skills and modify the behavior so that it's an appropriate, responsible use of the technology and the resources that they're out there with. We also are having a lot of intrusions across education, hacking and ransomware and DDoS attacks that weren't 10, 15 years ago something that we had to spend a lot of time with. But now as people get sophisticated and they're stealing information, you hear it all the time
Oh,
in the news. There's a lot of protections that we have to do around our student information and our staff information to make sure that that information is secure and well protected. So it's 2 parts. So it's a reactive, what happens when there is a problem, and it's a proactive, how do we stop problems from happening in the first place. But adult supervision in learning, whether you're at home or in school, is critical to make sure that the kids are developing the skills that they need. Because if they're not on our Chromebook, they're on their cell phone, and that cell phone does as much, or it does actually more, there's more access because it's unfiltered. So we want to really help our kids develop the skills they need.
So they're learning keyboarding. I'm thinking of Word and Excel and those types of things. Are those on Chromebooks, those types of programs? Or how do they do that? I'm thinking of a first grade. No, first grade is iPad, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's
Yep.
go second grade. Second grade's their first year with the Chrome,
That's correct.
right? Do they have, they do their letters or, this is early learning.
Absolutely.
And
So we use the Google environment, and the Google Suite for Education is a suite of word processing and spreadsheets. There's collaboration tools. So it becomes a part of the curriculum on a daily basis. So that typing, it's just another support of great teaching and learning, and we're not looking for it to replace handwriting. It's just meant to augment.
Oh, absolutely. We talked about how it embellishes and adds that other part of their world, because that's definitely a part of their world
Right.
anymore.
But it's also more than, back in the day, it was keyboarding and you're interfacing with your computer through that keyboard. And now the interface to the internet and other resources, it can be voice command, it can be touch. We're looking at character recognition. We're having kids that can't read English be able to have resources that help translate English into other languages such as Spanish. We're having kids that can use a touch screen so that they're practicing the skills. And as Neil said, this isn't a replacement of but an enhancement of
That's what
our
it sounds like.
teaching and learning environment. It's not a replacement for teachers, but something that can help take away some of those duties that are more operational or administrative for a teacher, and help them really hone in on helping students at where their level of need is.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, this just opened a whole different world. I'm hoping that our listeners are understanding how important your role is in Santa Fe Public Schools. You probably have a coach or a teacher on site at every school that kind of oversees what's happening there, because that's a lot of work for just the two of you.
And that's important. We can't just provide tools that people don't know how to use. So Neil, why don't you talk about our digital learning coaches?
Absolutely. We have 17 digital learning coaches at Santa Fe Public Schools,
Nice.
serving all of our schools. Some of them serve multiple schools. In our larger middle and high schools, we have one digital learning coach serving the school. These digital learning coaches they're the key to this program. They are in the schools every day working side by side with teachers to help them to understand what does the pedagogy of instructional technology look like. How can we learn to use the tools and then learn to use the tools then to engage students and to help students learn in a more meaningful manner.
That's fabulous. And do they get extra training, or is that their interest? Or how does that work?
Yeah,
Coaches that teach.
Good question. So we have highly qualified digital learning coaches. They really come to the table with a special set of skills. They're all former teachers.
Nice.
And they're very technically literate, and they understand the programs that we're using within our schools. We work with the digital learning coaches to fine-tune their skills on a regular basis. My digital learning coaches work extra over the summer, and that's really when we get our own professional development so that we're staying on the forefront of digital learning.
Oh my gosh, we cannot lose this ENT.
Well, and the loss of the ETN will be,
ENT.
so the 45% of this is directly supports the students, their devices, the software, the educational textbooks, and other resources that are on there. And then there's about 30% that's paying for these coaches. So these 16 coaches that are at each one of the schools working with teachers and their program and their professional development is another core component. And then there's 10% that's going for technicians and safety and some other things. So the loss, if this election doesn't pass, not only do we lose the funding for the positions and the technical support and the network refresh and the devices that kids and teachers use to access content. There isn't like we could say, okay, let's pull out the textbook, because that's not there for some of these subjects. It becomes a significant impact on how do we prepare kids for the future that they're going to be exposed to? How do we prepare kids to get into college and leverage the resources for research, et cetera, that they'll need to develop skills in, or just going out to career. And Santa Fe community has been very engaged, the county and the city, in creating a more high-tech workforce. You know, we have Meow Wolf here, and there's lots of jobs that are still available. We can't fill all of those positions with the kids that we're graduating right now, so we got to make sure that they have the skills, and we keep those great minds here in our community to help generate excitement about teaching and learning and our jobs for the future.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, we've learned so much today. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think it's very important that we brought up ETN, education.
Yes.
That's important. We heard what you had to say of what's happening here in the district as far as technology, and it's a big part. It's really changed. It used to be at the bottom, and I think we're up there at the top. We need to be at the top, filtering down. And you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the students are helping parents keep up with that too. If they see that at home and they are part of that, I think that brings the student and the parent together and teaching a lot of our parents. I remember having computer lab for our adults would come in, you know, back in the day. but now it's kind of integrated, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we believe so. We don't, when people buy a new phone, there isn't a big, thick instruction manual on how to operate that. So it's integrated in as you need to make phone calls, as you need to research on the internet, as you need to access friends, as you get your social media. You develop the skills because it's an integrated approach as opposed to here's how you use it, then go teach. We're trying to integrate great reading. Our instructional digital learning coaches are not trying to integrate technology. They're trying to support reading, math, and science and the skills both teachers and students need to accelerate the learning experience.
That's fabulous.
And I think, you know, if the one thing that I think is important, this is a whole new process with the paper ballot. The county hasn't done it before,
Right.
And the school district hasn't done it before. And what the concern for me would be is you get that and you say, I got to do something with it, and you put it to the side, or you get it lost in the bulk mail that's coming in, and you don't get that vote in. So we're encouraging people that they should get the envelope, fill that out. It'll take just a few seconds. Put it back in the self-addressed envelope and mail that off as soon as possible because their vote matters. We really appreciate the support that the community has given us in the past, and we're looking forward to continuing to do exciting things in Santa Fe Public Schools.
And it doesn't affect taxes by any means.
No
It's
tax
just a simple
increase.
process, and we'll get that done. That sounds fabulous. Well, we're just about to close. Is there anything you want to leave our viewers with before we say bye-bye?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, Santa Fe Public Schools would like to thank the community for their continued support. This coming ETN election is important, and we'd just like to suggest that you get out there and vote. Mail your ballot in as soon as possible.
You know, I come from an education family, and I have 2 daughters right now that are currently teaching,
Great.
plus a number of grandchildren that are in the system. And it's important for those kids to have the skills and opportunities to develop the skills that they need to compete for college and career. And this, Santa Fe Public Schools is doing this, having a one-to-one take-home device for every student from 7th grade to senior puts us in an elite class around the country of having the environment to really do some exceptional things in teaching and learning.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being our guests
Appreciate being
today.
here.
Absolutely.
Tom and Neil with the Santa Fe Public Schools. I'm Helen, your host for Inside Santa Fe Public Schools, and then until next time, we'll see you.
Thanks.